Hello, I'm Sharon Tapper. I'm the Executive Director of the Music Managers Forum US, the MMF US. It's great to see you today. If you are new to the MMF US, welcome. If you've attended or participated in our events or activities before, welcome back. For those of you who are less familiar with our organization and our work, let me give you the background on who we are. We were established in 1993. The MMF US is the leading trade organization for artist managers and self-managed artists in the United States. And we are a registered 501c6 non-for-profit. We endeavor to service the needs of our managers and their artists to provide information resources in the form of webinars like today's, networking opportunities in the form of our music manager summits and our regular meetup happy hour events in various cities nationwide. And we also work on advocacy efforts to benefit managers and self-managed artists and the community that supports them. We have a website if you'd like to be signed up for our events, activities, our newsletters, as they're announced, both virtual and in real life. Please sign up there for the newsletter. You can also follow us on our social media channels and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is, once edited, that is where this webinar will exist for you to go back and rewatch it at your leisure. The MMF is also part of a larger global network, which is called the International Music Managers Forum, the IMMF. That organization represents music manager forums in more than 65 countries around the world, including Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and Africa. So this enables us to connect with artist managers across various business opportunities globally via this network of MMFs. If you're not already a member, please consider becoming a member by going to mmfus.com and clicking on the join button. Do keep in mind we are a registered non-for-profit and we rely on the support of members and the generosity of our sponsors, and certainly want to take this opportunity to thank beatBread for being a gold sponsor and being so supportive of our work. Without any further ado, please join me in welcoming both Peter Sinclair and Matthew Tilley from beatBread to the floor. Gentlemen.
Is this where we turn our cameras on?
Yeah. Howdy.
Hey, Sharon, how are you?
Hello there, darling.
Hello, everyone.
People are going to be concerned this is an English thing, Sharon.
I know. It's just it is what it is. What can you say? You can't keep us down.
They threw us out a couple hundred years ago, and we're slowly.
Yeah, but we keep showing up.
That's basically where it's at. Hey guys, Matthew Tilley here in New York City, and that's Peter Sinclair in Los Angeles. And we're going to talk to you for a while. I have a few PowerPoint slides. It's only a few, don't panic. I'm also going to give you a demo of how our system works. Peter's going to tell a little bit of the backstory of how beatBread got started, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So, intro, what is beatBread? I'm going to tell you what we're not first. We're not a label. We're not a distributor. We're not an artist services company. We provide musicians and their partners with funding. At our heart, we are a data science and business process company. As somebody who spent 20 plus years in record labels, it sort of breaks my heart to say that, but that's what we are. We do financing for artists and labels through data science and business process. What's our mission? Empowering independent artists and independent labels by expanding their access to working capital. The goal is to make it really easy for people to get funded. Cut to Peter telling us how he got started. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and let Peter tell a little bit of the story of how beatBread came to be.
Sure. So guys, thank you for joining. So my name is Peter Sinclair. I'm the founder and CEO of beatBread. I always start off by saying that I'm an accidental participant in the music industry. I'm a huge fan of music. My George Clinton art that is used to be on the wall right here, just fell off the wall. We had a little earthquake a couple days ago in LA, tiny, but nonetheless, I'm a huge fan of music, but I never thought I'd work in the music industry. Most of my career has been in startups in a whole bunch of different industries, from consumer finance to sports ticketing to, believe it or not, direct from the field flowers. I thought my entire career would be in startups. And about 7 years ago, one of my children had a health issue, and things at home were crazy enough that I working at a startup was not sustainable any longer, and I need to take a corporate job. And literally the week that I decided that, I got a call out of the blue from a headhunter that Universal Music Group was looking for someone who had worked in startups to lead a division at Universal. And one of the job requirements is you'd never worked in music before. That was actually part of the job description. So I walked into Universal Music in the very beginning of 2015, when global streaming revenues were less than $1 billion. As we know now, they're over 30 and forecasted to be somewhere between 50 and 80 by the end of the decade. And what I saw was that while I'm a believer that the labels can add a ton of value to an artist's career, but a lot of artists in the label system really had their own merch teams, their own digital marketing team, their own radio promotion team, and they didn't need a lot of the services that the label provided, and they were just looking for a check. And that got the wheels turning, that if there's a lot of artists out there that can assemble their own teams, that if we could figure out how to do the check well and let artists choose their own partners, that there might be a business there. I then learned about the thriving independent sector. Actually, the original idea, I was sort of unaware, frankly, of the hundreds of thousands of artists who, make a, sizable amount of money on streaming. And it sort of, one thing led to another, and we started the business in 2020. We launched our website in November, not quite 2 years ago, and we did one deal in November of 2020. And we've done about 500 deals since. And we do deals from as little as $1,000 to up to $2 million per artist. And we never take ownership. We always let artists choose their partners, from distributor to marketing partners and those things. And we have, I don't know how many of you know the concept of a net promoter score, but we have a very, very high artist satisfaction. So we're still evolving our product. We still think it can be better than it is, but that's the idea. We provide funding, and frankly, we get out of the way. Everything we do is data-driven. And so, we may not, although we're working on that, give full credit for a lot of the soft factors that might lead someone to fund an artist. On the other hand, we're very objective, and we're not going to tell you that you need to go to this show or you need to do this or that. So that's what we do, and I will stop talking.
All right, great. So go back to our little PowerPoint here. I'm going to give you a little summary of kind of what the artist gets with beatBread, guys, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about our investor network, and then actually give you a demo of our product. So with beatBread, artists, why is this not working? Here we go. So advances, as Peter touched on, from $1,000 all the way up to $2 million, obviously driven by the data. Keep 100% ownership of their music. Our contract is actually that we are purchasing the artist's revenue in advance. It's a revenue purchase agreement, so we're not taking any ownership position of the music. You don't pay any interest. Our deals are based on a royalty rate structure, a recoupment rate structure, like a record deal would be, but on a much more favorable terms. You'll see those in the demo in a minute. But the main point being, if the artist streaming underperforms in some way, the balance there will never go up because there's no interest being added. The artist can see over 200 different advance options within minutes of coming to our site. Again, you'll see that in the demo in a second. As Peter said, you get to choose all your own partners. We're working with over 30 different distributors at this point. And I'd say one of the key functions is, if you decide you don't like your distributor anymore partway through a beatBread deal, you can move to a different one. You took an advance from your distributor, you're stuck with that distributor, just to point that out. You choose which tracks to include in the deal. Doesn't have to be the entire catalog. Maybe some of it's signed to a label, or maybe some of it's tied up somewhere with an advance against it. But if there are tracks that are available, those are the ones you can choose to include in the deal. You can choose to retain a share of your monthly income. Again, I'll show you that in the demo, but we don't require you to, the artist or you, to fork over all their monthly income to us. You can choose in percentages to keep enough to pay the rent or buy the groceries or whatever those ongoing expenses that you have are. You can choose the length of the deal, a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, a 5 year. Sometimes we offer an 8 year deal as well. Those are the main beatBread deal term structures. And you can also, again, I'll show you in the demo, choose to include or not future releases. All our deals have to have some catalog in them, but we have structures where you can add 5 new tracks or 10 new tracks and various other options to the deal. Again, I'll show you that in a second. It's usually about a week. Sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes it's a little slower. Some of it depends a little bit on how quick your distributor moves, but this is not the main point being catalog buyouts. I hear people talking about 3-month diligent processes. Obviously, get cash quick schemes or get funded today or tomorrow. We're not moving that fast, but the main point being it's not a long drawn out process. It should be pretty efficient, and 1 to 2 weeks is fairly typical for getting a deal done if you move fast. So that's the basic beatBread thing. We'll demo all of that in a second and get into more of the details, but we also want to talk a little bit about our investor network that we just launched. The press release went out last week, I think maybe the week before. There was a story in Music Business Worldwide and Record of the Day and a couple of other places, but the general concepts of the investor network are we have built a collection of distributors, music companies and music insiders, and high net worth individuals who want to invest in music. We allow them to bid on fractions of a deal. So we split the deal up into 1% slices and allow individuals to bid on that. And just to say, this is not the fan funding model in any way, shape or form. The minimum investment is, it's a 4-figure number on most deals. The artist in this case gets to set a minimum that they will accept. So, and this is larger deals, guys. We're not spreading this to every beatBread deal at the moment, but imagine an artist could get, $100,000 from beatBread, but they really need $120,000 to fund their next project. They get to say, that's my minimum. And if you guys don't hit it, I'm not going to take a deal with you. And that's how it's structured. We don't share that minimum with the investors. So they're not bidding to see if they can meet your number. They're bidding against the wealth of data that we provide them about how this artist streaming is performed and what the income levels have done and how the tracks are progressing and all those other things. We give you the chance to share lots of sizzle. These are my marketing partners. These are the collaborators on the next record. These are my upcoming tour dates. What are all the things that our algorithm can't capture are the things that will encourage these investors to bid higher. And we also provide these investors with a bid guidance tool, which helps them make a decision about where they should bid on these projects. I think that was my last point on there. Yeah, let me go back to that. So Peter, anything you want to add about the investor network?
No, I think that's right. Yeah, I would just say that we've done a few of these deals. We've been able to command a premium for everyone. And deals where there is, some of those softer factors that are real, great collaborators, great marketing partners, have a real opportunity to drive more than what our algorithm would otherwise give.
beatBread.com, here's the homepage. This is where you get started, guys. The best place for anybody to start. This little white box over here, you're going to come and type in an artist name. We'll show you a whole bunch of possible matches. Pick the artist from the list, give us an email address, tell us you're not a robot, and hit let's go. It'll take about 20 minutes normally to gather the data that we need in order to give you an offer. So sit tight, you'll get an email, says come back to the site, and we'll show you, we ask you to open an account, set up a password and that kind of thing. But that's quick, and then you'll get to a screen like this, where we're asking you, we got the right data. So these should be the top tracks for that artist. And what we're showing here is the tracks that make up about 80% of the artist streaming volume in the prior month. So you see this artist down here, total streams last month, 7.5 million. All other tracks, 1.8 million, but the bulk of the value is in these tracks that we're listing out. We're also showing what they actually streamed last month, and these little lines are how they've been performing over the last 3 months. So you get an idea of how these tracks are progressing. And this is a pretty stable catalog, as you can see. The reason we're showing you this is because of this column, artist share of streaming income. That's what we can't see in the publicly available data. So that's where we're asking you to come and say, we pay a producer 20% on this song, or, oh, that's a little glitchy. Or, this one's signed to a label on a 50-50 deal, so we're only getting 50% of the income from that one. Or I took an advance against this one from a distributor and it's unrecouped, so I can't include it in the deal. Or frankly, just I don't want to include that track in whatever reason. You see here, there's a collaborator on this track. So we've dealt that one a bit through just using metadata and seeing there's a collaborator, but maybe you're going to say, actually, that collaborator is getting 30% on that track. So those are the kinds of things. This doesn't have to be inch perfect, guys, because we check all this data later through reports, which I'll show you, we'll get to. But if you get this roughly right, the estimates that we'll show you will also be roughly right. So confirm that. The last question we ask, how much streaming income did the artist actually get last month? Again, that's a way of us dialing in these estimates. And maybe this guy's going to say, it's actually more like 26,000, right? That's close enough. Continue. So this is where I think we've maybe talked a bit, but maybe not enough yet. Data scientist is the most common job title at beatBread. We have 8 of them now full-time based in St. George, Utah. They're not looking at each individual deals, but they're continually refining the algorithm that sits behind the site and makes predictions about how artists are going to perform over time. We've got over 200,000 artists in the database now, I think 2 million tracks, over 1 billion data points, and 5 years of history now, which they've all combined into this algorithm, which is then making these predictions about how tracks will perform over time. So here we go, a lot happening on this screen, but think about it. The white side of the screen is the choices side, and the black side of the screen is the consequences side. So this is the side where the artist makes choices, right? The first choice they get to make, what music do they want to include in the deal? When the slide is set here, it's catalog only. That means we're only advancing against tracks already out, and anything the artist releases in the future, we wouldn't touch. Second choice you get to make, how long do you want the deal to be? We talked about this, right? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, sometimes 8 years, not in this case. And then the last choice, we talked about the artist being able to retain some of their income during the deal. So you can choose in 10% increments to keep 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever that is of the income that you want to keep, or none, frankly, because obviously it does affect the amount of the advance you're going to get. So those are the choices. What consequences do we have? So on a 1 year catalog only deal, we're estimating this artist will get a $237,000 almost dollar advance. And here's the recoupment rate we talked about, right? Recoupment rate or royalty rate, as you might know in a record deal. In this case, on a 1 year catalog only deal, 89% in the artist's favor. So for every dollar that comes in from the distributor, 89 cents goes towards recoupment and 11 cents is coming to us. On catalog only deals, because they're pretty low risk, we also offer this step up royalty here. So if this deal recoups in less than a year, let's say in 10 months you're recouped, 93% of the income is coming to you for the remainder of the deal. Now, our deals end at the later of recoupment or the term ending. So either 1 year is going to be up and you're already recouped and the deal's over, or if it takes us another week or 2 weeks or month to fully recoup the deal, that's when the deal's going to end. But as I said before, there's no interest, there's no penalties, and because it's not a loan, there's no personal liability for the artist either. So obviously, you can stay catalog only and add time to the deal to get more money. In this case, a 2 year deal is going to get this artist $409,000. That becomes an 81% recoupment rate, right? So the biggest cost of business for us is the cost of the capital. So as you go to a longer term, you've had our money for longer. It's cost us more to lend you that money, and so, or to advance you that money, I should say. And so the royalty rate goes down as the length of deal gets longer.
I would just also add,
deal,
the longer the deal goes, the greater the risk that the streams are less than what we predicted as well. So just for
right, exactly. And the important point to make here, guys, is the ratio between a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 3 is not fixed in any way. So some artists will go from a 1 to a 2 and see the number almost double because we're predicting a very steady streaming rate in their catalog. Other artists may only go up by 65%, right? Because we're forecasting a fairly steep degradation in their streaming. But the point is, it's not, you might see one thing for one artist and see something completely different from another. And that's just the way the model is forecasting for that particular artist.
And I would add, just to Matthew's point, yeah, changes, going from 1 to 2 is not a straight ratio, as he said. Also adding new music, he's about to show you, what that adds, could add a lot or a little. For those of you watching here, you may be thinking, these are very large numbers, this doesn't apply to me. I just want to reiterate, more than half the deals we do every month are less than $30,000, and we do lots of deals less than $10,000. So we'll go high, but also this works for smaller dollar amounts. If you don't have a huge stream profile, we're still an option for you.
Right. So let's go back up here to the included music, right? So if I move to this next slider, now we're catalog plus 5 new songs. Now we have the upfront advance, that's the amount the artist will get when they sign, and the amount we're going to advance them against 5 new tracks. And that happens to be on a 2-year deal. But again, you have the choice of maybe you want a 1-year deal or a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal, right? You're starting to get the idea that every time I move these sliders, these numbers will move around. So everything's a trade-off essentially. The next option up here is catalog plus 10. If your artist is more prolific, or maybe they make those things called albums. Any of you remember those? Or we have this option for catalog plus 5 plus an option for 5 more. Now there's 3 numbers over here, the upfront amount, the amount for the first 5 tracks, and then this optional advance for the next 5 tracks. That's our option, kind of like a record deal idea, right? Where we see if the deal's performing as we predicted, and we'll choose to take up that option or not. And the last one here, catalog plus 10 new songs plus an option for 10 more. So just to give you the full sort of range here, guys, if this artist took a catalog only 1-year deal and chose to keep 90% of their income every month, we'd advance them $23,000. If they wanted catalog plus 10 on a 5-year term and not keeping any income, we could be advancing them $1.3 million, right? Same artist, that's the range of choices that we're offering here. So the main point is for the artist or their manager in this case to find something they think they like the look of. You're not logged in at this point, but we do need to see your streaming reports in order to validate all of this. So hit continue to upload reports. You get to this screen. We have a whole list of distributors here. They're not the only ones we work with. They're just the only ones we have instructions for. So if your distributor's not on the list, just pick other. We're telling you we need an Excel or a TXT or a CSV file. It's the most detailed report you can get from your distributor. It literally shows every single stream that's ever happened on every single platform in every single country. It's probably 20 or 30,000 lines of Excel data. That's okay. We have machines that read them, not human beings. That's the good news. Anyway, get the report, drag and drop it here, hit confirm. You can add reports from multiple distributors. So maybe you have some on DistroKid, right? That one's easy. Click bank, click see excruciating detail, get the report, drag and drop it here. Hit confirm. Maybe you've got some on, I don't know, 1 RPM as well. Anyway, you get the idea. We can keep going, adding reports from different distributors. Check the box once you've done it, hit submit for review. As I said, we machine read all those files. Normally takes us 1 to 2 days to run them through our full diligence process. You're going to get an email, then they come back to the site, and you're going to end up on a screen that looks a lot like this, except instead of saying estimates here, it's going to say confirmed offers. And everything here will be a confirmed offer from us. And you can move these sliders around all over again. Maybe the numbers have gone up a bit. Maybe they've gone down a bit. Maybe you just changed your mind about what you need. But this is the opportunity to pick the exact deal that actually makes sense for you. Now, very few people will get a note saying you're eligible for the investor network. And that refers back to what we talked about a second ago. But for most people, here are the choices you get to make. And there's going to be a button that says accept this deal. I'm going to show you an offer letter at that point that you can download. You can email it to yourself. It spells out the math of the deal. This is what you're getting. These are the costs. These are the recoupment rates. You'll need to earn this much to be recouped and all the major points of the deal. If you're happy with that, we ask for ID and bank details and all those things. We issue a contract in DocuSign. And then the last piece of the puzzle is we need to take over the income from your distributor. Some distributors, we have a nice parent-child account. We can take care of you like that. Some we use a letter of direction. In some, it's the very basic. We take over the password of the account. It's not our favorite, but we can always suggest other places you can move the tracks where you do have that parent-child and you still keep some access. But that's really key, is that we get to take over the income. A couple of other notes. So minimum qualification for funding is about $100 a month in income, which usually means about 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. That's a fuzzy gray line, guys. If you're a bit below that, but have tons of momentum and tons of fan engagement, you probably will get an offer. If you're above that, but everything's trending down and it's all from playlists, and you don't really have any committed fans, you probably won't get an offer. But the only way to find out is by typing the artist name in at beatBread.com. We can also fund labels. I think we mentioned that at the beginning. We don't have a nice whizzy interface for that right now, but if you contact me, and I'll show you my details in a second, we can organize funding for, or organize offers against label catalogs. If you're a distributor and artist services company, I've realized this is mostly a manager's call, but just worth saying, we do white label that product for a bunch of different distributors and artist services companies, so we can rebrand that whole experience you just saw in the branding of an artist services company. And here you go, Matthew at beatBread.com is how you contact me. And I'm mentioning slots. Oops, back, there we go. So anyone who comes in off the street can look up 2 artists on the site. But once we know who you are, i.e. because you've emailed me and asked, I can give you more slots. So you can, if you're managing 5 artists, we'll obviously give you the ability to look up 5 artists. You don't need to go and register 7 different email addresses to be able to do that. So that's where to come and ask questions. And I think now we're at the end. Yes, that is the end of the formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. Peter probably has some additional comments.
Really quickly before I drop, guys, Matthew just showed you what we call the algorithmic advance process. Just to be clear, for some artists, they then would then qualify for what we call this investor network, where that number on the screen is not the final number, it's just the minimum, right? And then you can set higher. So I know Matthew said that, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the demo that's the baseline if you're of a certain size and have certain characteristics in terms of your next project. But you could potentially get more for a subset of artists. Matthew, if you want to elaborate on that.
No, I think that's the right message for this audience. We're making some waves and having some stories out there. And I think we say, guys, but we're over 500 deals in at this point and closing more than 1 a day. In fact, we did 42 deals in October. And we've signed 13 in November so far, and on the 10th of the month is pretty good going. So yeah, people seem to like this.
That's great. And are you finding that you're getting a lot of repeat business and just word of mouth?
Actually, I didn't even mention that. So about average 10 to 15% of our deals each month are artists who took an advance, say a year ago, and have come back and said, hey, my streams have really increased. Can I refinance? And so that is something we absolutely do for people, where if there's the headroom in their deal and they have to, happy to reset the term and start again, we'll give them options, and if they like them, yeah, we can refinance. Which also leads me to another point, Sharon, is that I should have mentioned, we have a very clear buyout clause written into our deals. We want, let me just tell a mildly amusing story, I hope. Now I've said it's amusing, maybe it's not. But anyway, when we were writing the contract at the beginning, our lawyer said, okay, so what do you want to do if somebody wants to leave? And Peter said, well, what would be typical in the music business? And the lawyer said, well, it'd be great at the time you'd, rub your hands together and say, okay, how much money can I make if somebody wants to leave? And Peter said, I definitely don't want to do that. Let's make it pure math, right? If they want to leave because they're getting bought out or they've won the lottery or for whatever reason they want to go, there's just going to be math. And we have a paragraph in the deal that it is math, and I can't even remember it because it's kind of complicated. But it's like, how many months have you got left on the deal? How much do you still owe? What was your streaming over the prior 6 months? And then there's sort of a formula that works out. That's the number to walk away. It's all written down and agreed. And it's not intended to be punitive in any way. It's just intended to be fair. We want to make what we would have made roughly, and we want you to be able to leave relatively easily, which especially if a label's coming after you, the number that it normally spits out should be absolutely no problem. Obviously, we can't be in a heads you win, tails we lose situation where anybody who wants to go can just buy out of their deal for what they still owe, because then we'd never have deals with an upside on them, right?
Right. And that's normal. And quite honestly, any more traditional deal would be quite expensive. So let's be honest, we've all seen those deals.
Exactly. Do we have any questions, Sharon?
Well, I'm going to start with the question that we have here. So Kayana Jean Philip, I hope I got your name right. Can you please clarify the payment structure? How are the revenues divided between the artist and beatBread? I think you answered that, but let's just review that.
Yeah. So let's recap on that. So the first thing that determines that is whether the artist chose any flow-through income or not. If they chose flow-through income, they chose to keep 20 or 30 or 40% of their income each month. That is the first amount. Remember, the money's coming to us from the distributor. So the money, that artist's check comes from the distributor to us. If they've chosen 30% flow-through, that's the first number off the top. 30% of it goes to the artist. Whatever's left, whether that's 100% because they've chosen nothing, or it's 10% because they've chosen 90, but whatever's left gets allocated according to the royalty rate or the recoupment rate, how that gets split, the amount that goes towards recouping their advance, which isn't money going to the artist because it doesn't go in their pocket, but it is money going to the artist in the sense that it's turning their negative balance back towards a positive balance, right? And then the remainder comes to us. So on that 1 year catalog only example, 89 cents on the dollar is going towards recouping the negative balance, moving it back towards getting to zero, and 11 cents on the dollar is coming to us. The worst royalty rate or recoupment rate you'll see from us is 51%. And that's why sometimes we show an 8-year deal and sometimes we won't, because if the 8-year deal would cause the algorithm to display a royalty rate below 51%, we tell the system, don't show that. We don't want to show a rate below 51%. So that's on an 8-year deal with new tracks in it. We're saying, 51% of the money is going towards recouping your advance and 49% of it is coming to us. But obviously, lending money over 8 years sorry, I should never use the word lending because it's not a loan, but advancing money over 8 years there's a lot of costs on our side in terms of doing that. So, okay, Juliana is coming in with a question.
I'm wondering wondering for bands and artists that make most of their income through touring or live music instead of streaming, can they contribute to the recoupment of the funding with money that isn't coming from streaming?
So there's a couple of things I'd say to that. One, if most of your income is coming from touring, you unfortunately will get a small offer from beatBread currently because we don't factor touring into it. We hope to be able to one day include publishing and merch and touring and all these things, but that's just a factor of when our data science team can get to those things. The closest example I can sort of think of that is if you took an advance against your streaming and then a big check came in from touring and then you wanted to buy out, then I'd refer you to the conversation we had a minute ago about the buyout clause and how you could buy out, but you can't sort of pay down the advance on a month-to-month basis by topping it up with some extra from touring, if that makes sense. But like I said, if most of your income's from touring, you probably won't see a very exciting offer from beatBread because we're only factoring in the streaming income.
Got it. That kind of answered one of my questions. It's like, can you bring in other forms of income or is it solely streaming? So that's something you're planning towards, but just isn't incorporated yet.
Yeah. So, and just to say, Peter's co-founder, who is our chief data scientist, never worked in music before either. He's built models in energy markets and insurance markets. And so this is really an outsider's perspective on pure data-driven funding. And in fact, one of our very early deals, John, his name is, called us up and said, I've just listened to this artist's tracks, they're fantastic. And Peter said to him, don't ever listen to the music again, with a big smile on his face. But the point is, there's no human being going, oh, we like this. Yeah, let's give him an extra 10%. Or, oh, no, I think she looks a bit old, don't you? None of that conversation is ever happening. It's data, and that's it. So that's
keeping it pure.
Except, right, when we go to the investor network, and that's when we say, yeah, share the photos, share the video clips, share the music, share the tour dates, share all those things, because these are a bunch of individuals and distributors who are going to get excited about that stuff in a way that our algorithm can't be excited.
Right. Do you operate solely in the US? Do you do deals around the world? Are there places that you do or don't do deals?
No, well, the only place we struggle to do deals at the moment, Sharon, is Southeast Asia, because the data that we get, so Illuminate just doesn't have great coverage there. Believe it or not, Illuminate, which used to be called Nielsen, doesn't track Spotify streams in India, if you can believe that. Huh. So we are working on ways to get around that, but so essentially, obviously the artist needs to be on a distributor that we know we can work with, and B, we have to be able to see their data, and most of our data, certainly at the beginning, comes from Illuminate. So now, if we have had examples where if you have an artist that has less than 10,000, so you've only got 5,000 monthly Spotify listeners, I'm going to give you an example that we fixed, but there may be other examples in the future, right? We have a bunch of clients in Nigeria, and early on, they were getting excluded because the first thing we were looking at is, what's their Spotify monthly listeners? Oh, too low. No, they get sent down the sorry, you're too small chute. And a couple of them contacted us and said, no, I got thousands of dollars of monthly income. We find out that in Nigeria, Boomplay is by far the biggest streaming service. So we can't use Spotify as a measure there of whether they're the right size or not. So we fixed that problem now, but we may find other artists in other parts of the world where, most of their streams are coming from a platform that we're not initially looking at. And that's why if you get the too small message, it will always say, if you have income between $80 and $100 a month, please send us the reports from your distributor and we'll be happy to take a look at them and see if the system got it wrong, which sometimes it does, right?
Right.
But to answer your question, we have clients in obviously the US, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Canada, Germany, the UK, Italy, France, several in Scandies, Australia, New Zealand, a couple in Vietnam, one in Philippines, I think, one in Singapore. You know, probably 70% of our business is in North America, and probably another 20% is in Europe, but then the remaining 10% is around the world. And we're, again, just agnostic on that. The system looks at the data and makes a determination, and that's it.
Got it. We have another question here from Constance Scott. Can an artist that was previously signed by a label include the songs that they released when they were still signed?
Great question, Constance. So two things have to be true for us to include the tracks in the deal, ultimately. One, we have to see those reports that I mentioned. So I think the labels are getting better at this, but if you'd asked a label 5 years ago for a detailed streaming report, I think they would have looked at you funny, right? So we've got to be able to get that report. That most distributors let you download it with 3 clicks. Most labels, you know, we did talk to one who said, oh, well, we mail them out every 6 months. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So we've got to see the report. And then we've got to be able to take over that income. So the label has to agree to accept a letter of direction. So the money has, well, and the third thing I'd say, which is really important, is obviously you need to be recouped, right? If you're unrecouped, the label's not paying you any income, and so they can't be paying it to us instead. So first thing is you got to be recouped. Second thing is we got to see the reports. And third thing is they have to agree to accept a letter of direction. But if all those things are true, absolutely no problem at all.
Right. Those are all the questions I'm seeing for the moment. Obviously, this is very accelerated. You've been, I mean, this is 2 years, and this is going super fast. Obviously, you're talking about bringing other types of streaming. It's wonderful that you're seeing the investor program that you're discussing. Where else do you see this growing out? Where do you see the future for beatBread?
Certainly, well, like I said, we're going to announce a much bigger artist fund next month, next week, hopefully. The investor network is just getting started. We haven't launched the marketing to the investor side of that yet. And the pitch here is that, you know, music is an uncorrelated asset class, right? You see the stock market going up and down all over the place. A stable catalog is not going anywhere. It's just locked in. So it's a pretty attractive investment from that point of view. And we will start marketing that. There's a whole other brand, which we haven't announced the brand name of yet, but there's another brand coming, which is the investor facing side of that, where we're going to hopefully, and it's, again, not the fan funding model, but qualified high net worth people who want to invest in music will hopefully have, we have a couple of hundred at the moment. We're hoping to have thousands of people in there. Partnering with more distributors and artist services companies. So we have about 25 people that have white labeled this so far. If you're on Symphonic, or you're on United Masters, or you're on Too Lost, or you're on a bunch of different artist services companies, and you go to their website, you'll see a button that says funding. That's our product, reskinned for them, right? So we're hoping to get, there's a few on my hit list. There's a few we've been talking to really increase that reach out there. And then adding other things in. PRO income is one of the first ones we're going to go after. Publishing income. You know, streaming is now for us very easy to predict and also pretty easy to collect. Publishing is not that easy to predict and not very easy to collect either. So that's just a task that's in the works for everybody. And really, we want to be. So I'll tell you what Peter's real ambition. Well, the real ambition is to be the largest source of funding in the music business. But how we want to get there is to just be such a known name that we won't always be the right answer, but we will always get a look in, right? And you could put it like this, and it's a slightly hyperbolic way to put it, but if we want to be in a place where if you're a manager in the music business and your artist is growing really fast, or looking at label deals, or looking at distributor deals, or in a place where funding starts to enter the conversation, we want you to always look at beatBread as an option. Might not be the right option. You might get a better deal somewhere. You might not like our terms. It might be all sorts of reasons, but you should have a look. That's where we'd like to be in the collective consciousness of managers, that they go, oh, well, obviously I'm going to check the beatBread number. Just see, you know, this distributor's offering me something and we might stay independent, and this label's offering me, but I know I need some funding. I'll definitely check the beatBread number and see what's up. That's where we want to be.
You're definitely at a time when there is an explosion of DIY artists who are choosing to build their model or build their what is it's those small businesses. They're building their own business and they're self-funding. So your timing into this space is amazing, and we're seeing that more and more in our community, and people who don't even realize that they're a manager. It's like, no, you're a manager in addition to being an artist. And
Right.
you need to know what options are available to you. So it's great that this whole side of the business that really that not that long ago just never existed. It was very much a gated environment. For being here. We look forward to seeing you all either in person or at our next webinar, which is going to be December 1st. It's our perspectives panel. And then on the 8th, we have a webinar with Mandolin. So in the meantime, Matthew and I are going to have a cup of tea, and we hope to see you. If you're in the Chicago area, we hope to see you at the summit on Saturday. Otherwise, please take care and be safe. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.